All right, good afternoon. We are so glad you could join us today to learn more about the PrEP Mentorship Program. My name is Arden McLean, and I wanted to also introduce some of the other folks you will see on the webinar with us today. We've got Ricky Harrell, who is a teacher mentor specialist, Kyla Jaramillo, Director of Mentorship, and we might be joined by Ali Freelander, who is our Director of Talent Pathways. Today, we are going to be doing an overview of the PrEP Mentorship Program. We're going to talk about the timelines, do a deep dive into what the program involves, and then talk with you guys about the next steps for application to the program. We will be collecting any questions that you have through our Zoom Q&A feature, so please make sure to post your questions there. We're going to be collecting those questions and providing written responses to all of them via an FAQ that'll be posted by November 3rd. All the webinar slides and the recordings will also be posted on the LASO 4 website.
Thanks, Arden. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday afternoon. I will kick us off with a brief overview of the LASO Cycle 4 application process. If you've been to our other LASO webinars, these slides will look familiar, so I'll do a quick refresh of these. So the LASO application is a single consolid application that combines grants, allotments, and in-kind supports bundled around a few key strategies to accelerate academic gains. The LASO Cycle 4 offers 15 opportunities focused on curriculum and instruction, educator training, more time, and innovative school models, all in one application. And so on this next slide, you can see that the LASO Cycle 4 is anchored in those four key learning acceleration strategies: curriculum and instruction, more time, innovative school models. And you're here today in this webinar that's focused on the education and training portion that really supports talent pipelines to support teachers in delivering excellence in the classroom. And so before I dive into sort of those opportunities, just want to name the differences within the opportunities in the LASO cycle. So within the LASO cycle, there are grants where school systems are selected for funding based on a set of priority points. And then there are allotments. So the PrEP program allotment is part of the LASO application process, and all school systems are selected for funding that meet eligibility criteria and commit to the statutorily based requirements. And so within a couple things I want to just name about the PrEP program allotment is that it's a non-competitive entitlement. So in other words, all applications that meet the eligibility criteria and commit to the requirements will be funded. To streamline identification of interested participants, school systems will apply for all PrEP programs through this LASO application process. So statute does require that the commissioner set performance standards and goals for these partnership programs and to review performance periodically. TEA is currently drafting proposed rules, including provisions that once approved for a partnership program, school systems will not need to reapply for continued funding, and that continued funding will be dependent upon those periodic reviews. So within, you can see on this slide, the entire LASO 4 portfolio. You can see that that green box draws attention to that education and training strategy. And within the education and training strategy, you have the PrEP program allotment, which includes the PrEP residency pre-service program, the PrEP grow your own program, and the PrEP mentorship program. And for all of those programs, again, all eligible districts may receive the allotment. And so today we're here to talk about the PrEP mentorship program. Before we dive in to talking about what the program is, what it entails, and the requirements, we're going to provide a little bit of background context as to why this program exists. So first, I just want to call attention to this data slide. And what we see on this data slide is that currently most teachers are entering the classroom without any significant training before they begin teaching. You can see on the far right side for the 2024-2025 school year, 55% of new hires, so the majority of new hires were uncertified. And you can see how that has steadily increased over time from 2014 to the 2024-2025 school year. We also know that Texas has a large number of novice teachers, and based on historical data, those novice teachers leave the profession at higher rates. And so some reasons this could be based on TEA's teacher survey. Based on that survey, some responses for why teachers potentially feel ill prepared are they don't feel prepared in areas such as planning instruction, implementing instruction, working with a variety of students and meeting those student needs. And so we know that quality preparation is linked to stronger outcomes for students and teachers, and that preparation pathways vary greatly in the implementation of key practices, leading to variance in student outcomes and teacher retention. And so there are a couple teacher preparation key practices that will lead to those stronger outcomes, including mentoring and coaching, which is what we're going to talk about today. And so back in 2022, Governor Abbott's teacher vacancy task force, which included stakeholders from across the state, they were charged with developing a set of recommendations tied to improving teacher recruitment and retention across the state. And this group of stakeholders had recommendations tied to training and support, specifically related to expanding teacher mentorship and leadership. Specifically, those recommendations included developing cooperating teacher and mentor teacher trainings that leverage job embedded and research-based best practices, and increasing funding for the scale of the mentor program allotment established by the 86th Texas legislature. And so I will hand it off to my colleague, Ricky, to talk a little bit more about the PrEP mentorship program.
Good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to talk to you about PrEP Mentorship Program today. If you're putting questions in the Q&A, keep them rolling. We're collecting all of those questions and we will answer those through an FAQ that's going to be published closer to the beginning of November. But please do not hesitate to pop any questions that come up into that Q&A. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about PrEP Mentorship Program. And PrEP Mentorship Program focuses on supporting beginning teachers in their first and second year of teaching. So this program is designed specifically to support those beginning teachers who are new to the classroom in their first and second years as teachers of record. And the program provides support in three key areas. So that first area is providing first and second year teachers with trained mentors. And those trained mentors will be providing ongoing coaching and mentoring support aligned to the classroom pedagogy standards. So those are things that new teachers really need support in coming in as brand new folks. The second area of focus is that this program will provide mentor teachers, those with high quality research-based training through the agency required Texas mentorship training. And Kyla's going to share more about the Texas mentorship training in just a little while. The third key focus is that the PrEP mentorship program will provide school systems with the financial support to implement strong mentorship programs, which includes funding for training as well as funding for mentor teacher stipends. And I'm going to talk about our little bit of a funding snapshot on the next few slides. So this is a quick overview slide that shows the funding snapshot for PrEP Mentorship Program. So as you can see on the slide, the PrEP Mentorship Program provides $3,000 per beginning teacher. And once again, those folks are teachers in their first or second year in the classroom. And there is a funding cap of up to 40 beginning teachers per school system. So of that $3,000 per beginning teacher, the mentor teacher will receive $1,000 per beginning teacher assigned to them by the school system to mentor. A portion of the funds must also be used to provide the agency required Texas mentorship training. Just a quick note here, the cost of the Texas mentorship training is $500 per participant per pathway. And note that this is based on ESC costs. So if you're partnering with a non-ESC approved provider, the cost of that TMT may vary. The list of approved providers can be found on our TMT website. We'll share that URL later. And then after that, after those stipends and after the TMT costs, if funds remain, those funds may be used on additional mentor teacher stipends, also strategic staffing and or additional mentor training. All right. So the next couple of slides go into some funding scenarios and spending examples for what districts might receive and might be able to use the funding for. And so I'm going to show you example A and example B. And so this school system A has 16 beginning teachers that meet prep mentorship requirements. So they've got 16 teachers in their first and or second year teaching. And that means that their prep mentorship program allotment is $48,000. The school system plans to assign 8 mentor teachers, 2 beginning teachers each to mentor. So the school system's going to provide $16,000 in mentor teacher stipends, which leaves about $32,000. And so a note here is that with those each mentor teacher being assigned 2 beginning teachers, each of those mentor teachers will receive $2,000 or $1,000 per beginning teacher assigned. On the next example, we'll see a different way that the school system is assigning beginning teachers to mentor teachers, and so that'll look a little different. But I do want to go back and say that it is $1,000 per mentor teacher per beginning teacher assigned. So I think that's important to note. All right. So for the Texas mentorship training, the school system plans to send those 8 mentor teachers to the mentoring educator training pathway as is required, as well as an additional 2 instructional coaches, 2 assistant principals, and 2 principals. And then for the Pathway 2 or the District and Campus Leader Mentorship Program design sessions, the school system plans to send 4 district and campus leaders. So in this case, 2 systems level staff and then 2 campus principals to that Pathway 2 design session training. So for this, the total cost of the TMT would be $500 per participant per pathway, or $9,000. So after that, you have about a remaining $23,000 in the prep mentorship funding, and that may be used on those additional teacher stipends and or strategic staffing or mentor training. So just a note again, this is based on ESC costs for the Texas mentorship training. If you plan to partner with a non-ESC approved provider, their costs may vary. And let me just make sure I've noted everything on that slide. Okay, and we'll move into our second funding example. All right, so here's another district, a slightly larger district. So school system B is a larger school system, and they've reached that cap of 40 beginning teachers that meet the prep mentorship requirements. So their school system's allotment for prep mentorship program will be equal to that $120,000. This school system plans to assign every beginning teacher or 1 mentor teacher. Let me get that straight. Every mentor teacher receives 1 beginning teacher to mentor. And therefore, each of those mentor teachers will receive a $1,000 stipend at minimum in order or for mentoring that one beginning teacher. So this means that the school system is going to provide $40,000 in mentor teacher stipends, which leaves about $80,000. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the TMT costs. So the school system plans to send those 40 mentor teachers to the mentoring educator pathway. We refer to that as Pathway 1. Kyla will go into details there, as is required through Prep Mentorship Program. But they also plan to send 12 instructional coaches, 12 assistant principals, and 12 principals also to that mentoring educator training. Additionally, they would like to send 16 school system and campus level staff to Pathway 2, which is our district and campus leader mentorship program design sessions. So of those 16 folks, 4 are school system level leaders and then 12 are campus principals. So that total cost for TMT would be $500 per participant per pathway, or a total of $46,000. So that remaining $34,000 in prep mentorship funding may then be used on additional mentor teacher stipends, strategic staffing, or mentorship training. And once again, this cost is based on ESC TMT costs as well. Okay. And then we'll talk a little bit about, for those of you who may be familiar with the mentor program allotment, I just wanted to note that that program has existed. That program has been repealed through the 89th Texas Legislature effective September 1st of 2026. And therefore, this school year 25-26 is the last year of MPA implementation. And starting September 1st of 2026, we'll begin the first year of prep mentorship program implementation. So I did want to note here that Texas Education Code 21458 for mentors still remains a requirement. There are some new statute in place for the prep mentorship program, as well as those new rules that Kyla mentioned earlier that are going to be, we're proposing them right now, so they'll be up for public comment later on this fall. And just a quick note that if you would like to participate in this prep mentorship program that we're talking about today, you'll apply through this LASO 4 process. All right, let's talk a little bit about eligibility for this thing. All right. So as mentioned earlier, the prep allotment is non-competitive. So that means that any school system who meets eligibility requirements and commits to those program requirements will be funded. So school systems interested in the prep mentorship program may apply through LASO 4. And just a quick note that for the purposes of the prep allotment, school systems refers to districts and charters as defined on this slide, and they're eligible to apply for each prep program. The number of instructional days a school system operates under does not affect the prep mentorship program. So please refer to other prep program webinars and guidelines for those eligibilities. All school systems are also subject to that statutory cap of 40 beginning teachers per year per school system for the prep mentorship program. For our Senate Bill 1882 operating partners that have a charter under Texas Education Code Chapter 12, Subchapter C, y'all are also eligible applicants for the prep allotment. 1882 operating partners are subject to the funding cap outlined in statute as well and must have written agreements with their partner districts to document how allotment funds generated through the partnership will be spent. So 1882 operating partners should have received a unique link to the LASO 4 1882 operating partner application. If you have not, you can reach out to the LASO team via the request form on their LASO 4 webpage. And adult charter schools that have a charter granted under Texas Education Code 29259 and Human Resources Code 221002 may participate in the PrEP mentorship program. They are ineligible to participate in the PrEP pre-service residency and PrEP Grow Your Own or GYO programs. All right, let's talk a little bit about assurances here. So, prior to applying, applicants must review the relevant sections of the Texas Education Code that are listed below, aligned to their programs of interest. So, on this slide particularly, we have all of the statute that's related to PrEP mentorship program, including all of the PrEP definitions, the PrEP mentorship program itself, program standards and goals, the PrEP program allotment or that funding mechanism, as well as Texas Education Code 21458, which is that statute for mentors. Also, just wanted to note again that TEA anticipates posting rules for the PrEP allotment and the PrEP programs for public comment during this school year, during the fall, which would become effective prior to the start of the 26-27 school year. And we anticipate sharing those dates about rulemaking in the upcoming months. All right. So, as mentioned on the last slide, one of the pieces of statute to read and understand is 21458. So, eligible applicants will need to abide by that section of code as well as the other sections of code. But I encourage you to read all those sections in their entirety. I did want to double click down into some of the specific requirements of TEC 21458 for mentors. So 21.458 for mentors outlines the requirements for mentor teachers in the state of Texas. And some of those major requirements include mentors being assigned to beginning teachers in their first and second year of teaching. So we're specifically talking about mentor teachers who are mentoring beginning teachers in their first or second year in the classroom. And we try to assign those mentor teachers to the extent practicable to teach in the same school, the same subject, and same grade level as their beginning teachers that they're mentoring. We know that that is not always possible, hence the to the extent practicable language, but just a consideration there. Additionally, these mentors must have at least 3 years of teaching experience and have demonstrated strong interpersonal and leadership skills, as well as evidence of an instructional effectiveness. The mentor teachers must also agree to serve in the mentor role for at least 1 year, as well as complete the mentorship training. And mentors must also provide 12 hours of mentoring support to each beginning teacher they are assigned per semester. In addition to the mentor requirements outlined in 21458, there are also school system requirements for mentorship through 21458. So in addition to the requirements for mentors, the school system must also ensure that the mentorship training is provided to the mentor teachers and any appropriate district and campus leaders who work with or supervise beginning teachers. And then they must also agree to support the mentor teachers and beginning teachers in that 12 hours of mentoring per semester requirement. And this means scheduling release time during the regularly contracted school day for mentors and their beginning teachers to meet for mentoring activities. And these mentoring activities could look like things such as observation and feedback, or going to observe another teacher and giving feedback, or having the beginning teacher be observed and provided feedback by the mentor, different things like that. All right, so hopping back out of 21458 and into the assurances for the PrEP mentorship program, there are some assurances surrounding that mentorship training. So school systems must ensure that all participants complete the Texas mentorship training. You're also going to need to name an approved Texas mentorship training approved provider provider in your LASO 4 application. And so, given that, you will need to take a look at our TMT website. We'll share the URL in just a bit and check out our approved providers on the contacts page and reach out to those approved providers. Give them a call. Reach out, ask them some questions, and determine who you're going to go with. And then you're going to need to provide that contact information on the LASO 4 application as well. The final piece is that you'll need to appoint a school representative or representatives to engage in all of the prep allotment and prep mentorship program communications and activities. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kyla again for more information on the Texas Mentorship Training. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Ricky. So I'll dive in to what the Texas Mentorship Training is, which is also, we call it TMT. So if you hear us say TMT, that's what we're referring to. So the Texas Mentorship Training, as we've shared in the beginning of this webinar, Ricky shared it as well, the Texas Mentorship Training is a requirement of the Prep Mentorship Program. And so school systems that are participating in Prep Mentorship Program will attend both Pathway 1 and Pathway 2, and I'll talk a little bit more about these pathways as we go through the presentation. The Texas Mentorship Training is also a requirement of the Prep Pre-Service Residency Program. So for those school systems that wish to also participate in Prep Pre-Service Residency, the Mentoring Educator Training, TMT Pathway 1, is also required for those cooperating, also known as host teachers. And so the Texas Mentorship Training exists to ensure that every beginning teacher in the state receives the guidance and support needed to thrive, leading to increased teacher effectiveness, higher retention, and a lasting impact on student success, really connecting back to those teacher vacancy task force recommendations that were shared at the beginning of this webinar. And so before I dive into what the Texas Mentorship Training is, just want to name a couple things related to stakeholder engagement. So before this TMT has even been piloted, it has gone through a number of rounds of stakeholder feedback, including feedback from educator preparation programs, teacher leaders, mentor teachers, district and campus leaders, as well as additional approved provider partners. And so this centralized training meets requirements for the training of all mentoring educator roles, such as mentors, mentor teachers, cooperating teachers, and host teachers, and includes fulfilling the requirements for both prep mentorship and prep residency programs. This training aligns with key TEA initiatives, such as the Leadership and Instructional Foundations for Texas LIFT program. We have a set of competencies for the Texas Mentorship Training, and those competencies align to the classroom teacher pedagogy standards, as well as the T-test system. The Texas Mentorship Training is delivered by certified Texas Mentorship Training providers, which include all 20 education service centers, as well as a few additional providers. And so this Texas Mentorship Training certificate is valid for 3 years after the initial training year. So your mentoring educators will not need to go through this Texas Mentorship Training annually, but every 3 years. So again, just noting what I just shared, the Texas Mentorship Training supports all mentoring educator roles, and it includes the 2 pathways. So pathway 1 is the mentoring educator training, and then pathway 2 is the district and campus leader program design sessions, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And so we'll dive in first to these pathway 2 sessions. And so pathway 2 is really built to support system level leaders and campus leaders in either refining, designing, and implementing strong mentorship programs. And these competencies support fulfilling those policy requirements. And so within these design sessions, these leaders are really looking at master schedules to be able to provide release time and a reduced teaching load to fulfill those policy requirements. Also looking at mentoring educator recruitment, selection, and assignment, as well as planning for that ongoing mentor training and ongoing support. And so who is Pathway 2 for? So Pathway 2 is intended for any appropriate district and campus employee who works with or supervises beginning teachers or oversees the mentorship program. So that it could include your prep mentorship program managers, your principals, your assistant principals. When you reach out to your TMT approved provider, they'll be able to provide support around who your Pathway 2 participants should be. And so what are the commitments for this Pathway 2 training? So all agreed upon district and campus leaders will attend the design sessions in the TMT series, which is approximately 16 hours. The prep program manager that you'll designate in your LASO application will work closely with the approved provider to communicate all dates, times, locations, and expectations with district and campus leaders. And then as part of this Pathway 2, your district and campus leaders will be designing the ongoing training and support for your mentoring educators, and then they will provide that support throughout the school year. And so you can see the estimated time commitments over the course of the year with these design sessions. So these design sessions are broken up into four sessions of approximately 4 hours, totaling approximately 16 hours. And then that school system appointed prep program manager, again, will engage in all program communications and activities, which would include webinars, surveys, and then the Texas mentorship training check-ins. And so I'll dive into Pathway 1, and this is the mentoring educator training. And so these, similar to Pathway 2, Pathway 1 is built on a set of competencies that has undergone extensive stakeholder feedback. And these competencies are rooted in policy requirements and new educator standards. These competencies are broken up into 4 categories. On this slide, you see the 4th category broken up into an A and B. But these competencies include, first, effective mentoring partnerships and behaviors. And so what that looks like is the mentoring educator being equipped to build trusting mentoring relationships, as well as being equipped to provide bite-sized and actionable feedback to their mentee. We also look at co-teaching practices in this training, as well as supporting the mentoring educator and supporting their mentee in setting up the learning environment. We also have competencies around instructional preparation and data-driven instructional practice. And that's really looking at equipping the mentoring educator to support their mentee in lesson internalization, lesson rehearsal, student work analysis, all supporting the student outcomes. And so who is this pathway for? So Pathway 1 is required for prep mentorship participants, including mentor teachers of beginning teachers in their 1st or 2nd year of teaching via prep mentorship, and any appropriate district or campus staff who work with beginning teachers. And so again, your TMT approved provider will be able to provide more details and guidance around whether or not your district and campus staff should attend Pathway 1, Pathway 2, or both. This pathway is also required for the prep pre-service residency program participants, specifically those host teachers of teacher residents via prep residency. And so what are the mentoring educator commitments? So all mentor teachers and the appropriate district and campus employees will attend all of the professional learning sessions in the TMT series, which is approximately 24 hours. That prep program manager will work with the approved provider to communicate all dates, times, locations, and expectations with the district mentoring educators. And you can see the estimated session time and delivery time for these sessions. So these sessions will begin in summer of 2026 and conclude in spring of 2027. And throughout the year, the district and campus leaders will provide ongoing mentor coaching and support based on what they're designing in Pathway 2. On this next slide, you can see the overlay of the Pathway 1 mentoring educator training, as well as the Pathway 2 district and campus leaders training, seeing that Pathway 2 training begins prior to the mentoring educators being trained via Pathway 1. And so the Texas mentorship training is offered by all 20 education service centers, as well as 5 additional approved providers, including the New Teacher Center, Resources for Learning, NIT, UT Thrive, and TechC. And so next steps for signing up, you can visit the Texas Mentorship Training website, which has been shared by my colleague, Jeff, for training provider contact information. You'll want to reach out to your preferred training provider to sign up for the Texas Mentorship Training. And after you have completed those steps, you will want to include your selected training provider on your LASO application. And so just to reiterate and name those school system time commitments, we'll talk a little bit more about those key points we wanted to stamp that we've talked about previously. So just to reiterate, school systems must ensure that all required participants complete the Texas mentorship training as the agency adopted mentorship training. And mentors must meet with their mentees a minimum of 12 hours per semester. And then the school system will appoint a prep mentorship program manager to engage in all program-related communications and activities. And so again, we named the timelines for the completion of the Texas mentorship training, but just want to name again that in year 1, all prep-funded mentoring educators will be trained via the Texas mentorship training. And then going into year 2 and year 3 of the prep mentorship program, new prep-funded mentoring educators will be trained via the Texas mentorship training. And then in order to fulfill those policy requirements that state that mentoring educators need to be trained annually, the district will provide ongoing training and support for those mentoring educators in year 2 and year 3. And that could be provided either by the district or you could continue to partner with an approved provider. And then in year 4, all of those prep-funded mentoring educators that were trained in the 2026-2027 school year will be retrained. And then similar to year 2 and year 3, any new prep-funded mentoring educators will be trained on the Texas mentorship training. And so let's talk a little bit about the application and scoring process. And so all eligible applicants that meet eligibility requirements and agree to the program assurances will be funded per the funding formula in TEC 48157. There will be no interviews for the prep mentorship program. In accordance with recent executive orders, the following language should be in the contract with the Texas mentorship training approved provider. And so your approved providers will have access to this language, and we encourage you all to read this when the webinar is posted to the website. So what is the path forward? So this is our last prep mentorship webinar. Our recording and slide deck will be posted to the LASO website. If you are interested in either one of the other prep program webinars, you can register for the prep residency pre-service program Their webinars begin next week. You can also register if you're interested in GYO for the Prep GYO program webinar. There is also in this education training bucket of the LASO strategies, there is a related grant, which is the Texas Strategic Staffing for Residencies grant, which is not part of the allotment. But if you are interested in that competitive grant opportunity, you can register for those webinars as well. Again, just want to reiterate, since the prep program allotment is not a grant, there are some differences in the steps and timelines after the application submission for awarding, verifying, and funding participation. So school systems may be interested in participating both in the grants as well as the prep program allotment, and those school systems are encouraged to compare those timelines and steps. So you can see on the left-hand side, the LASO grants timeline, and then the LASO prep allotment timeline is in green on the right-hand side, and those differences between the LASO grants and prep allotment timelines are in blue and orange. And so you can see this timeline overview. So the LASO 4 application is currently open. It closes on December 3rd at 5 p.m. Central Time. In this window, application window, you can attend the program webinars. We will also publish our FAQ in early November. It will be updated weekly, but the full version will be published in early November. And programs will be conducting office hours throughout the application window as well. And so the prep program application reviews will occur from December 12th through January 2022. And we anticipate announcing preliminary awards on February 2nd. Prep program participants will have an additional step where after rule has been posted, prep programs will verify their participation and will also submit written agreements if applicable. Those dates will be communicated soon. Again, because this is an allotment and not a competitive grant, there will be no e-grants for prep programs. There will also be no negotiations or no-goes for the prep programs. Again, this is not a grant, and TEA will communicate specifics around foundation school program payments in the coming months. And again, you can just see at the bottom those key milestones with the application submission, as well as the additional requirement for prep program participants to verify their participation. So again, in the prep program preliminary award announcement, which TEA will send on February 2nd, TEA will communicate information and timelines for submitting that verification of participation form, as well as written agreements. For the prep program only, TEA will administer that verification of participation form. We anticipate that being around the April to May timeframe to all schools that received the preliminary award notice. And so just again, to reiterate, school systems must submit that verification of participation form by those dates requested. And at that time, school systems will have the opportunity to decline their participation in the prep program allotment through that process. School systems will also be asked to report the number of estimated program participants for each program for which they were approved. And as part of that process, school systems will also review the prep program allotment relevant sections of the Texas Administrative Code and assure compliance with those provisions. There is a TAA on the prep program allotment. You can view that on the TAA webpage. And so again, LEAs must submit their LASO Cycle 4 applications by December 3rd at 5 Central Time. TEA emailed unique application links to the superintendents on October 3rd. If needed, there's a link to request a new link. The PDF of the application is posted on the LASO website. However, in order to be considered, LEAs must submit the application through Qualtrics using the unique application link, and applications must be signed by the superintendent in order to be accepted. So if you have questions, again, thank you so much for all the questions you've submitted in this webinar via the Q&A. We will update those and that will be posted by November 3rd. If you have specific questions related to the application process or need technical assistance, you can reach out to LASO via the LASO email. If you have prep mentorship specific questions, you can contact us at mentorship@tea.texas.gov, and we will be collecting those questions and answering them via the FAQ. We also have office hours for technical assistance for application support with the LASO team on October 27th and November 3rd, and then with our mentorship program team on October 30th, and you're able to register for those via the LASO website. And so again, just another plug for that LASO website. It is loaded with wonderful resources. On that website, you can find Initiative 1 pagers. You can find eligibility and prioritization guidance docs. You can find an initiative selection tool. You can find a roles and responsibility insight tool. And so as well as all the key dates and next steps. And so that website has been shared in the chat several times. Just want to thank you so much for your time this Friday afternoon. We're so excited for this program. We're excited to partner with you all. Please, again, we'll stick on. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A. And just again, want to thank you for your time. This concludes our webinar.